Hey everybody, greetings from the, hey everybody, greetings from the, hey everybody, greetings from the, hey everybody, greetings from the dank basement. I am your wicked Uncle Squinty, Paul Shalbetter. How you doing? All right, guys, got a couple things I got to pull on your coattails about here. Got some questions from viewers to answer, and that's the purpose of this particular pinch, Witcha, Squinty. Tonight's pinch is just something I have on hand, but I absolutely love it because I love me some nicotine, and this is the Quit from tokesnuff.com. Wonderful base flower that is very similar in all respects to Spanish gem minus the honey aroma. But it smells really good on its own. This tobacco, this snuff, is made with the tenderloin of the tobacco, the lamina of the leaf. Most nasal snuffs are made with the stems and veins of the tobacco leaf. They save the lamina for things like pipe tobacco and cigars, right? However, in the case of this one, they're using the best part of the leaf, and you can sure tell. I'm going to give it a little whiff because I need me some nicotine. Ready to pinch with me? It doesn't matter if you're pinching the same thing. Just grab a pinch. Let's do this. And before I do my pinch of snuff, I must say right at the outset, these videos are made for adults only. If you are not of legal age to purchase and consume tobacco in the place where you live, please go away and find something else to watch, and don't come back until you turn 18. Secondly, the purpose of these videos is not to promote tobacco use. If you currently do not use tobacco, I encourage you not to start. Nicotine is purported to be addictive. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And there is no doubt that using most forms of tobacco could have a detrimental effect to your health, particularly because tobacco contains chemicals that have been linked to the activation of cancer cells. Okay, that's the disclaimer. Now let's do the pinch. Hey, Junior, 16-year-old. Yeah, you sucking on that vape and smoking weed at the same time? Go over to TikTok and watch a teenage girl twerking in her underwear. You don't need to be here. All right, thank you. Cheers. I love it. YouTube is age restricting my videos because somebody in California put down the bong long enough to figure, oh my God, nasal snuff, that's tobacco. And they take another rip of the bong. We got to do something about it. It's tobacco. It's evil. It's wrong. Take a little slug of Chardonnay. California, you know, wine country, French Laundry, fantastic places. And they drink a little wine, do a little wax, some dabs, get out their bubbler. And then they say, we've got to restrict people from watching Uncle Squinty's videos. And, you know, the thing that kills me is that there's some asshole, sorry, YouTube asshole, don't mean to call you an asshole. I tell you what, that's not fair. I won't call you an asshole because it's an insult to assholes everywhere. You're more of a douche nozzle. I think that's a good name for you. But some douche nozzle is getting paid a pretty good salary to sit there and go, restricted, restricted. Oh, he did not use the proper gender pronoun because I'm a pansexual rotopluker and I don't want to be called he, she, or zhiz. You have to call me Myrna. Okay, fine, fine, fine. And they're going to restrict me, and they're doing it. You'll see my videos are now getting restricted to adults only status at the rate of about 3 a week because somebody finally figured out, after me being on YouTube for almost 10 years, they finally figured out that nasal snuff is tobacco, and so they're hitting me. Let me correct a couple of errors I made in a video 8 years ago, and I don't know why I have not made these corrections before now, but they are important. First of all, I said incorrectly that nicotine hits the same receptors or the same class of receptors in the brain as opiates, and that menthol is triggered or triggers the same receptors as cocaine. That is absolutely scientifically incorrect. Nicotine has its own receptors, and I forget what they're called. I think they're nicotine acetallergic receptors. They're like cholinergic receptors, but they're a little different. If you smoke menthol, it actually does strike the same receptors as opioids, but not cocaine. So I was wrong on 2 points there. So I finally cleared that up. Secondly, I want to clear up a comment that I took a lot of heat for, that nicotine is a rare drug in that it gives you energy, suppresses appetite, and so on when you need it, but when you need to be relaxed, it will relax you. Now, I am loosely quoting a professor of mine from the University of Minnesota who at the time was the director of the methadone and Suboxone heroin replacement program for Hennepin County and knows what the hell he's talking about. Somebody that had a first year pharmacology course felt compelled to correct me. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, well, it might be. It turns out that there are only a couple of studies that shows that nicotine can relax you. And in one of the studies, it dealt specifically with people who were being treated for mental illnesses with psychotropic drugs and the fact that nicotine as an adjunct to their regular treatment, in other words, if you take it with the pills, it actually seems to have a better effect for relaxing anxious patients. I think that if we're talking tobacco use being relaxing, it has more to do with the rituals of smoking or otherwise consuming tobacco, and it may not be the nicotine itself. Thirdly, I said categorically that nicotine is addictive. Yes, it is. But there are different levels of addictive potential. And I say this from experience. First of all, a very good friend of mine died from trying to go cold turkey from alcohol after years and years of drinking, and it killed him just trying to withdraw without medical help. But secondly, years ago, I was a student at the University of Minnesota where I studied two majors. In all honesty, full disclosure, I did not graduate. I did not complete them. I had a chance to do a pretty cool radio project, which was to write and produce a jingle for Arby's restaurants. Paid me a good amount of money, and I dropped out of university at the end of my junior year. So I never finished university, but I was studying chemical dependency as one major. My other major was human sexuality. And because I was a musician also at the time, I can honestly say I majored in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But during that time period, a friend, not a close friend, but a friend who knew that I was studying drugs and addiction, told me that he wanted to withdraw from heroin. Had I known then what I know now, I would have taken him to a hospital. Instead, he wanted to cold turkey on his own. Guys, it was one of the ugliest, most frightening and painful things I've ever had to watch in my life. That's an addiction. That's an addiction. You want to quit caffeine? You're going to get a headache for a couple of days. You want to quit and that's addictive. Caffeine's addictive. You want to quit nicotine? Couple of weeks of being irritable, not being able to sleep, maybe some weight gain. But it's not like the addiction to opiates. If you've ever seen somebody trying to withdraw cold turkey from opiates, it's terrifying. And by the way, they could die. This is a serious piece of advice. If you or anyone you know are addicted to any drug, cocaine, opiates, prescription pills, anything, please seek proper medical treatment. And please quit. You don't need the monkey on your back, to use the tired cliche. You don't need to be poisoning your body. I had a very bizarre experience. A lot of my friends smoke weed, and it's known among my friend group that it's okay to light up some weed in my house. I usually don't get upset unless you don't share. I'm pretty happy. I came downstairs once when a friend of a friend was visiting, and the guy was sitting in the chair I'm in right now, running heroin into his vein. I allowed him to finish his injection. He cleaned himself up, stowed his needles and so on, and I asked him to leave. But yeah, heroin addiction, opiate addiction, they're very real things. I think the media is conflating abuse of illegal fentanyl and heroin, along with drugs that are prescribed by doctors for pain management. And I feel really bad for people who need narcotic pain medication because they're not getting it, because there's a general stupidity, as there always is about drugs in this country. They cannot differentiate between the clinical supervised use of opiates and somebody that's banging H back in the alley. They lump all those deaths together, and then it becomes a national opiate crisis, and then pretty soon people who need it for pain management can't get it. But that's just me. All right, so enough about the addictive potential of nicotine. Yeah, it's addictive, but it's addictive, I think, in the same way caffeine is addictive. Addictive. I heard a very interesting theory from a fellow by the name of Dr. Fred Hanna. He's not a medical doctor. He's a psychologist and a professor of psychology. He's been teaching psychology for many years. He's also an expert on pipe smoking, and he wrote a wonderful book that you can still get on Amazon called The Perfect Smoke. If you have not seen Dr. Hanna's book, read it. You will learn a great deal about pipe smoking. Fred Hanna. He once told me that he believed, it was just a hypothesis, not quite even developed into a theory, but he said he believed that about half of the addiction to cigarettes wasn't the nicotine at all, it was hypoxia, the state of having less oxygen in your bloodstream than your brain needs. Hypo, low, oxia, oxygen, right? So hypoxia is oxygen deprivation from smoking instead of breathing pure air. He may be right about that, because I know that other forms of tobacco are much easier to quit than cigarettes, and all of the forms which are easier to quit do not involve inhaling. So he may have something there. So that's what I've got to say about the addictive potential of nicotine. Now let's get to the customer questions, the viewer questions. Customer questions. This makes me sad. It makes me really sad. But not enough to make me take down the channel, although that is one of 3 options I have. Do I have weird looking eyes, guys? Seriously, do my eyes look strange? ¿Me ven extraño? ¿Te ven extraño los ojos? ¿Por qué? Because recibo mucha crítica. I receive a lot of criticism sobre cómo parecen mis ojos, how my eyes seem to be, or how my eyes appear. And I want to know, because if my eyes do look weird, I've got 3 choices. Let's take a pinch. Toquit, delicious. Damn, that's good. That is such nice snuff. I have 3 choices, some more radical than others. The first one is I can start wearing sunglasses. I've asked this question before. I've got some pretty cool looking pairs of sunglasses I can pop on. I've even got some really ugly looking ones. Here, let me try these on. These are pretty cool. Let me dust the snuff off of them. Here we go. All right, so I'll pop on these shades. Is that better? You less offended by my eyes now, Snowflake? Douche nozzle? You okay with that? Now that's the first thing I could do. The second thing I could do is take down the channel. With YouTube restricting my videos, very little actual viewership, although 2,500 subscribers, but not getting a lot of views. I'm not monetized. I've got nothing to lose by taking down my YouTube channel and vanishing from the face of the internet, and that would be fine. My third option is actually my favorite, and it's to tell the people who do not like the appearance of my eyes, good, let's play a nice game of hide and go fuck yourself. You don't like what you see on my channel? There's plenty of shit to watch. And it's not just YouTube. You can go to BitChute, you can go to TikTok, you can go, well, there's all kinds of places. Go to Bing, type in video and what you want to watch, and it'll give you 20 of them. You don't need to be here. And if your only reason for being here is so you can write me shitty emails to tell me that my eyes scare you. I had one person say and then people get clever. I can't see eye to eye with you. Oh, clever. Yeah, funny. If you don't like the way my eyes look, you can go elsewhere. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to leave that. So in answer to the viewer who wrote me, my God, your eyes freak me out so fucking bad I have to look away when I watch your videos. My first question to that viewer was, then why do you watch? If the appearance of my eyes bug you that much, why do you watch? Oh, I know why. So you can write me troll letters and tell me how ugly I am. That's whatever, man. So I think I'm probably going to go with the third option. If you don't like the way my eyes look, let's play a nice game of hide and go fuck yourself. And that's kind of where I'm at. I hate that. I mean, I'm not sensitive about the appearance of my eyes at all. I know they look weird to some people. But I've also been told by some people, including some very attractive women, that my eyes express my emotions, that my eyes are pretty, that I have beautiful eyes. They might be a little disconcerting because they wander a little bit. To the person that asked the respectful question, what is wrong with my eyes? It's very simple. My retinas are dying far ahead of my body. I have a condition that is part of a group of conditions called retinitis pigmentosa. It's a bad name because there is actually not inflammation of the retinas. Therefore, it cannot be retinitis. It would be more correct to say retinosis pigmentosa. And the particular flavor that I have is a fairly rare form called Leber's congenital amaurosis. You can look it up. Until I was about 40 years old, I am now 64, I was able to read print, see my computer monitor, recognize faces up to about 5 feet away, accurate with a pistol up to about 30 feet. Actually pretty damn accurate with a pistol. I trained, so I got pretty good with using it even without good eyes. During the years when I could see, despite the fact that I have never had a driver's license, I drove a car 4 times. I flew a light plane over 130 miles in the air, did not take it off, did not land the plane, but I flew it through the air, kept it level, kept it at altitude, kept it on the compass for the better part of an hour or so in the air. It was, if you are curious, it was a Piper Archer, which is a fixed-wing, single-engine aircraft. I once, because I'm freaking crazy, got on the front of a 750cc motorcycle. It was a Kawasaki 754, which meant it was a 4-cylinder. And I rode from basically 80 miles south of the Iowa-Minnesota border to about 70 miles north of the Minnesota border. In total, about 130 miles at 70 miles an hour, with the owner of the bike sitting behind me on the P-pad, steering with his hands on my shoulders, 70 miles an hour. And much of that ride was made through pouring rain. He did not tell me to pull the bike under a bridge overpass and switch places until the rain got too bad for me to see, so to speak. So I've done all that. But then in about 2000, shortly before 9/11 actually, so it's 2001, I went from having that much vision to having almost no vision. Finally, I turned the corner. So I hope that answers that question. Again, there's nothing I can do about the appearance of my eyes. Once in a while, I'll do something like this, grab the camera, make sure I'm looking at it. Hi, how you doing? I'm your friend. Got any cute sisters? I didn't think you did. Yeah. So that's that answer. All right. Next question that I get an awful lot is, how does snuff taking differ from other forms of tobacco? It's actually a bigger question than it sounds. For one thing, nasal snuff offers the second slowest route of delivery to the brain of the nicotine. The only thing that would be slower than sniffing it or having it in your mouth is taking a pill. And they don't make tobacco pills. So it's effectively the slowest way to get nicotine to your brain. This means you may perceive a high nicotine snuff as not having very much nicotine because it's not nearly as fast as smoking one of these things. You smoke a cigarette, it's like right in the middle as far as speed of delivery to your brain. And the faster you get reinforcement for any behavior, the more likely it is you will become addicted to it. It's just Psychology 101. Remember that? That class you slept through because you were hungover? Yeah, that one. In order of speed, it goes intravenous injection. That's the first fastest. Via the lungs, second fastest. Intramuscular injection or subcutaneous injection, both are about the third fastest down the list. The fourth fastest is absorption through the mucous membranes, either in your nose or in your mouth. And the slowest is via the stomach and intestines and then to your brain. So nasal snuff is not the fastest way to get nicotine to your brain. That's one substantial difference between snuff and cigarette smoking. Other forms of tobacco use will be right about the same as taking nasal snuff. If you dip, if you use snus, if you smoke a cigar or a pipe and do not inhale, it's going to be about the same. Maybe a little faster with a pipe and cigar simply because the concentration of nicotine is higher with every puff. But if you do nasal snuff, my estimate has always been one apple seed sized pinch is about the same as one drag off a cigarette. Look, if you consider that a cigarette contains about 1 gram of tobacco, your average cigarette is about a gram of tobacco. If you do 10 1/10 gram bumps, 10 100 milligram bumps, which would be pretty big bumps, you've got the same amount of tobacco in your system as if you'd smoked a cigarette. But that doesn't mean it's going to affect you the same way as a cigarette. This means that, and that leads me to my next question, can I quit smoking using nasal snuff? Absolutely. The snuff I'm taking right now is called Quit. Its purpose is to help you quit smoking cigarettes. But I think what you have to do, and I'm repeating myself here, if you've already heard me say this, I'm sorry, bear with me. I think the secret is you have to quit the cigarettes completely for at least a couple of days. And then when you can't stand the craving for nicotine anymore, then start using the nasal snuff. If you try to switch off between various modes of tobacco use, well, yeah, snuff isn't helping me quit smoking, but what I do every day is I start my day with a cigarette and then I put a dip in. And once I'm done with my dip, then maybe I'll chew some leaf tobacco. Maybe I'll have another cigarette. I might smoke my pipe. And then I get to about lunchtime and I'll do another pinch of nasal snuff and then I'll smoke a cigarette at 1 o'clock. And I just don't know why I can't stop smoking. Well, that's why. Your body is going to prefer the fastest delivery route to your brain for the nicotine. So if you continue to smoke, nasal snuff will not satisfy you. So if you're going to use snuff to quit smoking, and yes, you can, I promise you, you can do this. You have to give up the cigarettes completely for 48 to 72 hours. Then, if the cravings get unbearable, then you start using the nasal snuff. And I guarantee you, you will never need to smoke again. You might want to, but you'll never need to. So, that answers that question. Another question I get is, how large is well, it's a very personal question. I mean, it's super personal. I don't even know why I'm answering it on camera. But they say, Paul, how big is your snuff collection? The last time I counted, and I haven't counted for a while, and I've acquired a lot more tins since then. The last time I counted, I had 186 tins and tap boxes of nasal snuff. So right now, I'm probably right around 210, 212. If you count the Rosinski packets, refill packets, maybe a little more. People are always sending me snuff to try. As a matter of fact, I've got two that I'm going to need to review here in the coming week. One is the Falzer, Pfalzer, Falzer snuff, which I have never tried before. That's a new one for me. And also the third of the Rosinski Schmalzers that I have not yet reviewed, and that would be the Oderlander. And I'm told by people who love Oderlander that I'm saving the best for last. So very excited to bring those to you. So that's coming up. As far as my snuff collection goes, I started buying snuff in about, not counting my experiences right out of high school. And I can tell you, people say, what was your first snuff? My first snuff was Ozona Cherry, now called Ozona Type C, because they can't say cherry because children might think it's candy and start doing snuff. Never mind all the fruit-flavored alcohols that are out there, you know. Ooh, lemon citrus burst malt liquor. Yeah, okay. They're not worried about kids in that, but they're worried about a snuff called raspberry. Well, fine. So my first one was Ozona Cherry, and the second one was Dr. Rumney's Original. The third one was Ozona President. I didn't like snuff back then, and I gave it up and kept smoking the fucking cigarettes. Neat. I started buying snuff in 2010. The first ones I bought were Silverstone Orange from Pershel, no longer available. The best orange scented snuff I will ever have, and it's a shame they don't make it. It was fluffy, it was super easy to take, moderate nicotine, had a true orange, not orange baby aspirin, but a true orange scent to it. Absolutely lovely. It was manufactured in Spain for Pershel of Germany, and they stopped making it almost immediately after I fell in love with it. It made me very sad. Another of my early snuffs was, I believe it was Toke Original and Toke Peppermint. I think those were the first two, and I bought them in the disposable bullets that were made out of really soft plastic, and I liked them both, but not all that much. It wasn't until about 2012 that I started really getting into snuff, and that's when I started this channel. So that's the story of my snuff history and how much snuff I have in my collection. Another question I get a lot is, how quickly does snuff go stale? The answer is it will start to lose aroma pretty quickly once it's opened, depending on the snuff. It will dry out, it become drier than it was when you bought it. Snuff never technically goes off unless you have a moist snuff. Some of the Sir Walter Scotts, such as Moro Moro, or for a couple of others, they start out fairly wet, creme de fig. If you're not careful, you can introduce mold spores into the snuff with your fingers, and that will definitely make it go off. For a lot of snuffs, it's just better to use a spoon. But for the drier snuffs, I've never had mold. I've never had them become absolutely unusable even after several years, although not as pleasant. Generally speaking, I think the best life of the snuff is within about 6 months after you open the tin. If you don't think you're going to finish the tin in less than 6 months' time, one option you've got is to decant it into a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid and keep it in a cool, dark, dry place. And you will be fine, and the snuff will last for years and years and years and years. I recently came across a very, very, very old tin of W.E. Garrett Scotch snuff, and it had not been opened, but I think that we figured out that snuff was put into the tin, or in this case, the tub, a cardboard tube, probably sometime in the 1960s. And once we broke the seal on it, it was perfectly fresh and delicious. Wilson's of Sharrow tins, They say they only last a year under refrigeration. That's because they want to sell you more snuff. If you keep a snuff under refrigeration before opening it, it should last almost indefinitely. And if you are lucky enough to still be able to find the Samuel Goworth style, this is not a Goworth. I think this is, what is this? Let's find out. Well, it's not even open yet. Maybe I shouldn't open it. If you have one of these that's vacuum sealed, I call these shoe polish tins, your great-grandchildren would be able to pop this open and it will be just as fresh as the day it was packaged. People get overly fixated on the freshness of snuff. Here's another one. Same type of tin. The toke tins are very, very good. Toke is and Walter Scott did it for a while, and then they got cheap and started putting their stuff in plastic, which isn't nearly as good. But the Toke screw lid type containers will also keep the snuff very, very fresh, even after they've been opened for the first time. The trick is that the biggest enemies of nasal snuff quality are circulating air, excessive moisture, light, and heat. So if you can keep your snuff in a cool, dark, dry place, in a tightly sealed container, it will last longer than you do. I think that's about it for the questions. Let's see, we've gone over no, I haven't discussed that, where to acquire snuff. Other than a couple of artisans, including Rene Rosinski, who is located in Germany. If you live in North America, South America, the only place is Europe. The only place you can really buy snuff is online. Now, if you live in England or you live in Germany, you're lucky because there are still tobacco stores where you can go and find a lot of different nasal snuffs. If you want Mullins and Westley, there's actually a little shop, and that's what they sell. The only snuff they sell is Mullins and Westley. But there are tobacconists and news agents still. You can still find Gletscher Prisa, Hedges L260, and a couple of other main staple snuffs. You can find them in tobacconists in England pretty easily. However, if you live in the United States of fascism, the only place you can get it is through the mail from England, order online. There are two companies. There are actually several stores online, but they boil down to one of two companies. You have the Mr. Snuff empire, which includes mrsnuff.com, snuffstore.co.uk, and I believe snuff.me.uk. I think those are all under Mr. David Anderson's control, and that's Mr. Snuff. The other are under Mr. Roderick Lowry's control, and that is tokesnuff.com and artisansnuff.com. They both have good service, but there have been delays, partly attributable to COVID and the supply chain problems, partly attributable to bad customs agents that don't understand the laws concerning the shipment of tobacco from England to the United States. There's a very old treaty, goes back to pre-Second World War, and that treaty says, it's a postal treaty, and it says, if it's legal to mail within the borders of Great Britain, it is legal to mail to the United States. That's why, even though the Prevent Access to Cigarettes by Teenagers Act also prohibits the mailing of, quote, smokeless tobacco without defining it. They don't get very specific. Smokeless tobacco could be snus, could be dip, could be nasal snuff, could be those little compressed tobacco pellets that are flavored with peppermint. Those are all smokeless tobacco. Technically, those are illegal to send through the mail in the United States, except between hobbyists. But if you own a tobacco store, you cannot ship any of that stuff. The only thing you can legally ship inside the United States right now are cigars and pipe tobacco. But in England, it's still legal to send snuff through the mail, so they can legally send it to the United States. Unfortunately, 1 in 20 customs inspectors have not gotten the memo. So every once in a while, your snuff will get held up at customs. But the service from the snuff companies itself is very good. And if they have it in stock, they're going to get it out to you quickly. You may have to wait till they get a full shipping container so that the shipping doesn't kill the company that's selling the snuff. But generally speaking, you should have your snuff. If you order it at the first of the month, it should arrive no later than the 25th of that same month. It's going to take about 3.5 weeks for most customers. Okay, that answers that question. Another question that I get rarely is, can nasal snuff damage your health? That opens up a can of worms. Yeah, of course it can. I mean, it's tobacco. Tobacco has its own risks. However, that being said, there has never been a case of nasal, pharyngeal, or throat cancer attributed to the use of nasal snuff alone. Yes, people who smoke and use nasal snuff may get cancer, but not up in the snuff area. They're going to get the cancer down here, or in their throat, or on their tongue. As far as dip goes, dip actually causes fewer cases of oral cancer than one might think. Biggest risk of dip is tooth loss and gum disease, bad breath, and being welcomed at NASCAR with open arms, but otherwise not being very popular outside of certain redneck areas. Dip is, for most people, disgusting. It is for me, even though I have done it. And while I don't use Copenhagen or Skoal or Grizzly or Kodiak, I do once in a while chew loose leaf or plug tobacco, but only once or twice a year, when I'm not in front of anybody that I'd have to spit in front of. They're all different, and all forms of tobacco carry their own risk. So I cannot say that nasal snuff is harmless, nor would I. There are risks to every form of tobacco use, and that's why I always say, if you currently don't use tobacco, you don't need to start. And nasal snuff is tobacco, as YouTube finally figured out, which is why they're age restricting my videos in between bong rips, redefining their personal gender and pronouns, therefore, and drinking Chardonnay, which is what they do a lot in California. They sit around, and they have weird sex, and they pontificate about how evil Donald Trump is, and they smoke a lot of weed. And then they go to YouTube, where they get their $120,000 a year salary, and they hit a button to age restrict videos for a guy that only has 2.47 mil subscribers and whose average videos garner 800 views. From the Dank Basement, I hope that answers your question. Again, if you don't like the way my eyes look, let's play a nice game of hide and go fuck yourself and go away from my channel. I ain't taking it down, and I'm not putting on shades just to keep your snowflake heart from melting or keep you from having an anxiety attack. Your anxiety attacks are your problem. They ain't mine. You guys have a great week. It's another work week. We're going to get out there. We're going to work. We're not going to get paid enough money. We're going to pay too much taxes. We're not going to be able to afford the things we really want, but hopefully we'll be able to afford the things we need. We're going to stay sane. We're going to love our families. We're going to try to do something nice for another human being. And we're going to stay positive until next weekend. From the Dank Basement, you know who I am. I'm not even going to bother to introduce myself. God bless you.